Hey, 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 how's it going, Coach Val?
Hi, Dr. Tiffany. Happy New Year, friend.
Happy New Year. 2025 is here,
Oh, yes, it is.
and I hope it goes by slower than 2024 because the whole year was like over in a flash.
It really was. Like, usually you'll have some part of the year that kind of just, kind of edges by or whatever. But like 2024, the whole thing kept rolling.
Yeah, very, very quickly. So, Happy New Year to everybody watching, joining us live for tonight's episode. We have a really, really good topic. I mean, all of our topics are good. Every week we say that. But we have a really, really good topic tonight. And all of these topics that we have come about from our own experiences, things we've read or in our personal lives, professional lives. And tonight we're going to be talking about letting kids fail. Is this a good thing? I'm sure you've heard of this. If you haven't, then definitely buckle up because this is going to shift your mind into another dimension once we dig into it. But really, it raises from the point of helping kids develop some resiliency and not always being the parent or the teacher that solves problems for them so they never experience failure. It also means letting kids deal with the consequences that come from their choices. So we're going to dig into that today. So Val, when you first heard about this topic, letting kids fail as a teacher and as a parent, what were your initial thoughts about it?
I listen, as a teacher and as a parent, I have always been a proponent of the kid needs to learn what the consequences are for the decisions that they make. And then the step before that is they need to learn how to make their own decisions. They need to learn how to come up with their own options for any of the problems that they may have. Sure, they can ask, but I'm running into kids all the time and for the past few years in education who don't even attempt and feel like it's not even their responsibility to fix their own problems or to figure out their own solutions. This is somebody else's responsibility. For example, I do math tutoring, and I had a student who was taking geometry, and geometry typically is like one of the hardest math subjects for students. So he was having some trouble. Look, 2025, here we go again. Uh, but he was having a lot of difficulty, and every time I would go tutor him, I would remind him that I'm only with you once a week for an hour. I said, this is not enough time for me to teach you the stuff that you're supposed to be getting in school. And after I leave, dude, like you have to put in some work. And so after, quite a few sessions of this, I finally said, "Hey, do you even want to do this tutoring? Like, is this something that you want?" I said, "Because your mom is paying me a lot of money and we're not really like seeing much progress, and I feel bad. Your mom paying me money and this is not really like working." And so he was like, "I don't know. It's whatever." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna talk to your mama." And when I talked to her and it explained how things were going, and she was feeling the same way as well, I said, listen, it makes no sense to keep paying for something that's not working. And as much as you want him to be successful in this class, if he's not willing to put in the work or even opening his mind to the fact that this is something he's responsible for doing, then those are the options you got to weigh. And I said, it's no problem for me. Like, if you want me to come back, I'll come back. But in integrity for me running a business, like I have to be honest with you. And they ended up ending the tutoring. I didn't check back in yet to see, how he did or whatever. But from that mom, from that conversation, I could tell she really felt better about the situation. And, I was just letting her know he's got to feel some consequences. Like there's only so much you can do. And the kid, especially a teenager, has to learn how to deal with their own choices and what comes from that.
That's right. I know a lot of people when I was just talking about this topic with them, well, I can't let my kid fail. I'm not supposed to, as a parent, I'm not supposed to let my kid just fail at life. And when it comes to the big things, like things that put them in danger, right? We don't want them to get hit by a car, they run out the street. We don't want them to get burned by something in the kitchen and not tell them, hey, should rethink that choice you're about to make. So things that put them in danger, those are not the things that we're saying let them.
Absolutely.
We are talking about the practical things of life that if I don't put in the time and effort into whatever it is I'm doing, homework, studying for a test, doing a project, then the result and the consequence of that is going to be I don't get a good grade. If I choose to piddle around all day at home and not get my chores done, when it's time for me to maybe go hang out with my friends or do something fun with the family, I don't get to go do that thing because I haven't taken care of my responsibilities. So it, in effect, is allowing your kid to deal with those practical life issues that come up so that they can develop the skill. And so, a really good way that I like to think about it is when we had kids and they were babies, right, becoming a toddler and learning how to walk, we would see them go from sitting, they grab onto something, they pull themselves up, they might wobble a little bit while they stand there. We didn't rush over to say, oh, don't fall, because we know what the wobble means. The wobble means they're unsteady, they're getting ready to fall. No, what did we do? We stood back, we watched them. What are they going to do next? Are they going to fall? Are they going to take a step? Are they going to lean? What are they going to do next? We didn't rush in trying to prevent them from falling. When they fell, as long as they didn't hurt themselves again, the letting them fall is not about letting them fail. I'm sorry, it's not about putting them in dangerous situations. When those toddlers fell, we didn't rush over to pick them up every single time. We let them figure out how to get themselves back up and what they needed to do next time when the wobbles happened to not fall again. When they started taking steps and we let them hold on to our fingers and walk, we didn't keep doing that, right? Like if they started to get it, we wiggle our little fingers out from that tight clenched fist of theirs and we let them see if they could do it on their own. That is the same idea here. We can't keep rushing in when the wobbles happen to prevent the fall. We can't keep holding on to them because we don't think that they can handle that next step that they're going to take. We have to take our hands off, just like we did when they were toddlers, and say, you'll figure it out. Now, with the teenagers, because I know there's that hormonal shift that happens in the magic of middle school. I think you can run into some very strong-willed young people who, as much as you tell them, hey, you need to study, hey, you need to do better on your homework, you're going to fail sixth grade if you don't get it together. Look at your grades. And we think, okay, well, they're actually going to fail the sixth grade. Like, I have to do something. So in those instances, Val, what are you thinking parents should do?
So there are always like checkpoints along the way. What I love about the analogy that you gave with the baby walking is even when we watched, even when we gave them our fingers and then eventually started letting them go, like we also in that process would clear things out of the way when we saw it happening. So it's not like taking your hands completely off. You give the kids space to make an attempt at whatever it is, make a decision, whatever it is, and try it and see the consequences. But you also provide some guardrails, some safety nets in the process for just in cases things happen. With our teenagers, the magic of middle school, I love that phrase. I wrote that down. You're gonna have to write a book later. When it comes to teenagers, I think the same thing applies. especially because they're even more strong-willed at that point. They have come into their own personalities, and they think they know more about the world through their very limited, minute life experience. And so you put things in place along the way. So you give them some standards, you give them your expectations. Especially as a school teacher, I constantly reminded them of the standard to make sure it's out in front of them all the time. Am I trying to manipulate things to help them achieve that standard? Most of the time, no. I'm setting a precedent for them to understand that if this is the expectation in whatever area of life that the expectation is in, it's your responsibility to do the things to make sure you are at that expectation. And when you don't, these are the consequences that happen. Now, what I did do is try to set up like mini milestones along the way, so that the mini milestone, when they hit it, the effect of that, if they don't come through it, is not as bad as like the big challenge or standard or obstacle they might face. But once they knew that, like, oh, I made this bad grade and Ms. Wilson's gonna put it in the system, okay, well, baby, I don't want to do that anymore. And I like, even a lighter example, another personal one of mine and my teenager. We were in the car one day, and both of my kids have a habit of, like, when we're leaving, I always take my water with me. And I'll remind them, guys, you want to take your water? No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Okay. Well, by the time we've been out and about for about 3 hours, and we're back in the car, Mom, can I have a sip of your water? And so I'm fussing at them every single time. I'm fussing at them. Didn't I remind you? Didn't I ask you if you wanted? You said no. And they're like, yes, ma'am. And I end up giving them some water because I'm a mom. My kids are thirsty. Like, I can't let them thirst, to death. And I said, they're not going to die. It takes 3 water for the human body to feel its effects. We're going to be home in 20 minutes. So on this particular day, I looked at my son and I said, no, son, you cannot have a sip of my water because I reminded you to get yours before we left home. And actually, I remind you quite often, and you don't. And more than I like, you keep asking for mine. So on this day, you are going to feel the consequence of this thirst that you could have had control over before we left. And he was like, Mom, are you serious? Yep. Don't touch my water. Yeah. So we got home. He got his water. The next time we went somewhere, he made a different decision without me saying anything. I didn't have to remind him of nothing. I'm going to get my water, Mom, because I know, I can't get your water. Just like, this can be scaled. It can be on a small scale, but every time you do it, it does help kids begin to think and prep about future, about outcomes, and about consequences.
And I love that example that you gave about the water bottle at home, because this concept of learning from their choices, it starts at home. Before they ever step foot into a preschool classroom or into kindergarten, they are learning these types of practical life skills and consequences at home. And so then setting that good foundation at home, helping them understand even in the smallest ways when they're younger that their actions have consequences, and letting them learn through mistakes, sets up be more resilient, more of a risk taker in school, more responsible, able to problem solve on their own. If we're at home when they're children, younger, before their school age, and we're doing everything for them, every time they wobble, we go back to my example of learning how to walk, every time they wobble, we're right there. Then when they get to school, guess what they're going to expect the teacher to do? The same thing. The same thing. They're going to expect the teacher to be there and make sure that they do everything correctly. They're going to expect the teacher to read their minds because at home, parents, we know what our kids want. Let me just go ahead and get it for you because I already know what you want. We're not taking away their choice when we do that. So now they're at school, they're expecting the teacher to read their mind as well, not developing the communication skills to talk about what it is they need. And so it just sets up the school experience to be more challenging on top of the academics that they're responsible for learning. So as parents, if we could do our part at home, then that helps contribute to their success at school. And a lot of times parents, I feel like parents feel like the only help they can give when it comes to schooling is academic. Oh, that means this means I have to sit down and do schoolwork with them. That is not what it means. If you can send a well-adjusted, problem-solving, conflict resolution-seeking child to school, the teachers will be thankful and grateful. And that's what this is. We cannot take ownership of all of our children's choices and the decisions that they make. And so if the kid left the research paper at home, they didn't get it off the flash drive, whatever research project they were supposed to work on, they left it at home. Guess what? It's left at home. We're not going out of our way to go back home to get it to bring. No, what's the consequence if you, what are they learning if you do that for them? Oh, well, the next time I forget something at home, don't worry, because my parent will go home, get it for me and bring it to school. Same thing with forgetting your lunch. My son forgot his lunch. He must have worked it out. He came home hungrier than usual, but he found something. They got lunch at school. He figure it out, because I don't want you to think that in the mornings when we're leaving to get ready to leave for school, that you don't have to be really aware of what is in your hands and what is not in your hands as you're walking out the door. Because I have my own things to think about as I'm walking out the door. So I don't want to have to think about my things and your things when it comes to something very basic, right? So when we say letting kids fail, it really just means letting them feel the weight of their choices. And I love how you mentioned setting up those milestones throughout. So we don't want to just say, hey, welcome to 7th grade, good luck. And
shoot them out the door. No, not at all.
No, give them, hey, did you get your homework done? You might want to get your homework done. If you need help, you need to let me know. Some kids need to hear just that specific statement. If you need help, you need to come tell me, because otherwise, how am I supposed to know? So,
right. It brings up that we've talked about before, like self-advocacy for kids, because as an adult, that's one of the life skills that they need. Nobody is going to just come up to them and be like, oh, I think you would really like this or that, or let me do XYZ for you. Like, they first have to open their mouth and say what it is that they need or that they're looking for or what they want in order to get it.
Yeah. And in all of these examples, I don't think it takes away your anxiety as a parent. Like, you knew that your kid wasn't going to die of thirst in the back seat driving home, right? I know my kid is going to die of starvation at school because he left his lunches at home. Yes, we would be concerned, oh, wow, he really didn't turn in his project. What is that going to do to his grade? We can still have those thoughts. We can still have the anxiousness that comes along with it, but we don't have to insert ourselves into that situation as the problem solver. So I don't think it just means you clock out as a parent and you're just like, oh well, he forgot his lunch, and not think about it anymore for the rest of the day. You are going to think about it because you're a parent. You want to be there. You want to make sure they have what they need. And when they don't, you're going to think about that. So don't think that just because you're thinking of it means that you need to swoop in and solve the problem. That's natural to keep thinking about it. But you want to hear them come home and say, man, I was hungry today. I'm not going to forget my lunch next time. Strange thing that happened with me and my son. So I would take him with me to the gym in the morning, and I would work out, and then from there I take him to school. So we leave the house, we go to the gym, I work out for an hour, take him to school. We did this 2 to 3 times a week for a month. So we leave the gym, we get to the gym in the morning, and he says, I don't have my shoes. And I'm like, how did you leave out of the house without shoes on? How does that happen? And so I'm like, well, we're at the gym now. So we're going to come in here because I'm about to get my workout. So, just have a seat, watch your Netflix on your tablet. So as I'm working out, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to have to go back home and get this boy's shoes? Now, we go back home, he's going to be a little late to school. I'm going to be late starting up my work day. Oh, so I'm thinking about this for the whole 60-minute workout. What am I going to do? So by the end of it, I said, well, we're going to school. And he's like, but I don't have my shoes. I won't be able to go outside for recess. Okay. I don't know what to tell you because I'm unclear how you walked out of the house and didn't realize you didn't have shoes on. So we drove to school. I let the teacher know, hey, he doesn't have his shoes. Now, for anybody who hasn't joined us before, my son does go to a small private school. He's not in this big elementary school with hundreds of kids. So I had the opportunity to explain the situation to the teacher. He wasn't like ostracized in the classroom because a lot of the kids take their shoes off in the classroom anyway on a daily basis. So I drop him off. He's like got his head hung down, and so driving home, I'm like, okay, am I going to let him not have shoes all day? Or am I going to take him shoes up there? Thinking about it, get to my lunch break, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take him his shoes up there. I felt like in that instance, making it halfway through the school day, that he had learned he missed recess. So I strategically took his shoes after recess, but I took his shoes there. And when we got home, when I picked him up that day and we got home, he talked about how crazy it was that he left his shoes at home. And I'm happy to say that since then, he has not walked out of the house without his shoes on, which is even crazy to celebrate. But that was a moment where I was thinking about it all day through my workout, through my work day. And then I decided what is going to work best for me. Like you might have said, well, you don't have your shoes all day. And that's fine. I said halfway through the day, I'm going to make you miss recess and then I'll get you your shoes. So it still stung a little bit. He felt the consequences of it. And then I got a little relief from my anxiety of bringing him his shoes and knowing he did have some shoes for the second half of the school day. So just because you're feeling that angst doesn't mean you always need to jump in.
Yeah. And be comfortable, like, for you in that situation, what I love, it's self-awareness. So like you understood, you went through your whole workout worried about it, and then even once you got home, I'm sure like that factored into your focus for your work as well. And so like we're not saying, now me, if you've been on this show anytime, you know I'm a little different, and my kid would have been at school the whole, and I would have felt two bits about it. Like when I had the realization, like, oh, you're not gonna die, you'll be fine. I don't worry about it no more. But like what we're saying is either way, it's okay. Like it just depends on you, your personality type, what you can tolerate. But what we are also saying is just because you feel some way, that's not necessarily an indication to jump right in automatically. That your kid has to learn how to deal with thinking about themselves and not always depending on other people to do their thinking for them. And that's a huge problem we see in education right now with young kids. And it seems like it's trickling down or up, I should say. Like you expect it with the younger kids, and now we're getting these middle schoolers and these high schoolers who still exhibit the same characteristics as the younger kids. And because they're older, they think they're entitled and have a right to these feelings and that we're supposed to do something about it. I say no, and I'm going to show you why I say no. Okay, you're going to learn today. That's
right. Yes. So I think in those moments, whether you're the parent or the teacher and you're feeling that sense of angst rising up in you, like, okay, this this kid is going to, the consequences, they don't really seem like they're fully aware of what the consequence is going to be. Ask yourself in that moment, what is the lesson that you want them to learn in this moment? What do you want them to learn? And if you intervene, are they going to learn that lesson? Or is it going to create this continuation of what they already have been showing you? Is that they're lacking responsibility, they're lacking problem solving skills, they're lacking resiliency. Um, it could be something as simple as extracurricular sports. My son did track. He wasn't doing as well. He thought he was going to go out there and win first place in every race he did, and that just was not the case. And he was like, I want to quit. I said, okay, you can quit. And this look of relief came over his face. I said, but you're going to go tell your coach why you want to quit. No, 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 no. Oh, well, if you want to quit, we don't just not show up when we're ready to be done with something. You have to go and explain and let the person know, I'm not coming back, and these are the reasons why. That's a life skill, right? You want to
taking responsibility, and it's respecting other people and their time, and it's being respectful.
Yeah. And what I really wanted him to learn in that moment was to speak up for himself. And I also wanted him to learn that we don't quit. So I took him to the coach, having the conversation. By the time they finished talking, he didn't quit. He enjoyed the rest of the season. That is what I wanted him to learn. And that is why I did not intervene in that moment to do the hard work for him, which was either not take him to practice anymore or send the coach an email and be like, hey, you know what? He said he doesn't want to do this anymore. That is a life skill that I hope if we encounter that situation again, he doesn't want to continue with the sport or activity, then you go let the person know that you don't want to do this anymore and explain, answer their questions if they have some, that will carry on with him as he gets older, and he'll refine that skill more and more. So it can be something.
You also let him know that he has options. Like, just because you decide to get involved with something or put yourself in a situation, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. And I know, like, in my journey of personal growth and development, I've heard quite often that successful people quit. And I know growing up, that was so counterintuitive for me because it's always been ingrained in me, winners never quit, winners never quit, right? But it made me actually really pause and think about it, like, no, because if you're doing the wrong things, then it's important for you to recognize, and I don't mean wrong things as in bad things, like, drugs and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, if you're in a sport and you know that this is not the sport for you, like, why am I going to keep putting energy towards this? That energy could be used in a place that I'm actually purposed for, that I'm actually gifted in. So I can put more focus on that. So letting kids learn that quitting for the right reason is necessary is a huge life lesson.
Totally. It's huge. And, the kid doesn't feel like they're getting enough playing time on the field, on the court, whatever it may be. As parents, we want to go talk to the coach, right? Hey, you're not giving my kid enough playing time. That's not our battle. If our kid wants more playing time or less playing time, you let them go talk to the coach about that. Let the kid do it. They can speak up for themselves. If they don't know how, they will learn. And maybe you can model it for them to say, hey, if you want to play more, you probably need to go to your coach and be like, hey, coach, can I play more? And give them the words to use. But it's so important that we just step back, wiggle our little fingers out from our fists of our kids as they're wobbling and let them figure things out on their own. There's a really good book that I've been reading some summaries about. It's called The Gift of Failure. And it's by Jessica Lahey. And I actually started reading it or listening to it on Audible. So I'll be sharing some of the things that I learned from it, but it really is about how the best parents learn to let go so their children can succeed. And I think that is just a great way to sum up this whole episode, is how do we let go for our kids to succeed, because we feel like we need to hold on in order for our kids to succeed. And it reminds me of like that example of trying to control situations. Like you have sand in your hand, you don't want it to fall out, so you keep squeezing the sand tighter and tighter. And what happens? Little pieces of sand are steadily falling out of your hands. The tighter you hold on to it, and if you just open your hand up, let it go, that sand will like stay right there in the palm of your hand. So I feel like that's a great example, and it just leads into an extension of this topic of these kids growing up to be adults. You and I are from the latchkey generation. My mom, I did not have the luxury of leaving my stuff at home and my mom bringing anything to the school. I got on the bus, she went to work, I came home with a key. It is what it is. And guess what I learned to do? I learned to figure stuff out, and it created characteristics in me that I still hold on to till this day. So don't we want those same things for our kids? I would hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another great episode. I told you all this would be good. That book again is called The Gift of Failure by Jessica Lahey, and we'll be talking about it more throughout my reading of it, and I'll share some things with you. But make sure you like our episode, download it. If you listen to it on podcast, share it with friends, family, colleagues, and make sure you check us out every Tuesday right here on YouTube. Also listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. You can search Tuesday Talks. And with that, we will see you all next week. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.